Thank you. Before I start, I'd like to pay my respects to the people of the Kulin Nation and the elders past and present and any Aboriginal people in the audience today. So, like Michael Marmot, I want you just to all think back about why you did medicine when you were these dewy, excited medical students not so long ago. If you were like me, you did it because you wanted to change the world. You wanted to relieve suffering. You wanted to contribute to the global humanity. And you may have decided, like me, to start in paediatrics or do it later on in the life course. Also, if you're like me, though, you have had times in your clinical practice where you have felt overwhelmed, like you are losing the fight against social determinants and your resolve is sorely tested. And there are times where you just think, nothing I'm doing is making a difference. But this is a call to arms. This is a call to say that you can make a change. You can fight poverty every day in your clinical practice and to embrace your inner superhero. To do this, I'm just going to talk about a clinical case. So this is Sam. Sam hasn't been born yet, and he has two options in terms of reaching his biological potential. He can fully reach it and have a great life, or he may not, and I would call that a half-life. And before Sam's even born, he's sort of behind the wicket. His mum smokes. She's got a very stressful life. It's been a lot of trauma. As a result, Sam is born low birth weight and a little bit preterm, and mum never really accessed antenatal services for reasons of trust and transport. Nevertheless, I'll just press my button. Nevertheless, Sam is a happy chappy. He's got one of those innately cheerful temperaments, which is a great thing for Sam. However, life still continues to get hard. You know, he's now a toddler, mum's still, still depressed, still isolated. She hasn't engaged in healthcare services. It's too hard to get there. She can't afford a private paediatrician, doesn't trust the hospital where the gen peds are, and just goes to various medical centres. And Sam's viral-induced wheeze means that he recurrently goes to ED. There's also no reading at home. Mum doesn't have the time. She doesn't really have the literacy skills. She can't afford to send him to preschool. So Sam doesn't get the essential elements that he needs to be ready for school. Also, people don't detect that Sam's got some language issues. So that by the time Sam hits school, he's not going to thrive. I can tell you that at 5, that he won't be thriving at 10. So he's struggling. He's also missing a lot of school because he keeps going to ED to manage his asthma, and he can't run around and play sport because he's wheezing. So Sam's no longer a happy chappy, and we know how that goes. Later on, Sam fails and drops out of school. He turns to drugs and alcohol because it's a lot more fun than school and it makes him feel better, and he gets depressed. And Sam ends up with a half-life rather than the great life that he deserved. And for those of you who are not paediatricians, you know that the story just gets worse. You know that if you took the past history of your patients, you would get something like this. And we know that Sam is at risk for long-term adverse physical, mental health, developmental outcomes, and early death. And actually, if you're not even going to take the moral argument, Sam is going to cost the health system a lot of money. Now, I think it's very easy for us to think about the social determinants of health and that many live outside health, but I'm challenging you to all think about what our role is. We know from Canada and the US that 25% of adverse health outcomes are due to inequity in access and quality to health care. So that's our patch. That's what we own. So we are a social determinant of health. And I think we need to really bring that message across. And this chap who looks like a sea captain, retired sea captain, is a famous Tudor Hart who coined the very good inverse care law, which is the availability of good medical care and social care tends to be inversely proportionate to the needs of the population served. And he formed this view after working with Welsh miners. So are we contributing to Sam's poor health outcome? Did we contribute before he was even born? So this is just data from the health stats in New South Wales. We've got the rest of New South Wales in the dotted line, both at 16 weeks check-in and 20 weeks check-in for antenatal care. And then we've got the lowest quintile is the straight line or SAM. So SAM, just by his postcode, just by his situation, was less likely to access antenatal care. And usually we say, why didn't that mum come? What we need to be saying is, how do we make our services more accessible for Sam's mum? Did we contribute before he even got to school? The single most effective evidence-based treatment for children who are developmentally vulnerable is high-quality preschool, and we should be prescribing it. And on this graph where we've got our most disadvantaged at 1 and our least disadvantaged at 5, this is from the Australian Early Development Census data, we not only have the most shocking fact that 40% of children in the most disadvantaged quintile are not ready to school, that means they do not have the skills they need to flourish, and only 24%, although it's still shocking, of children in the first quintile have that, and we have the clear gradient that Peter was talking about. But if you're disadvantaged, you are least likely to access preschool. So these kids, like Sam, are in double jeopardy. And we as doctors have power to advocate for that. And then when Sam had his speech and language issue, but I could argue when Sam had his asthma, whatever it was he actually able to access our health services? So Sam lives in the orange and dark red bits of Melbourne. It could be Sydney, it's just this map's Melbourne. And unfortunately, all the speech pathologists actually work in the blue bits, which is where the rich people are. And actually, if you look at our green dots, that's our publicly funded speech pathologists, they're also clustered around the blue bits. So we don't actually have our services where they need to be. But it doesn't have to be this way. We need to get brave. We need to use this fantastic document of ours, the Convention of the Rights of the Child, and argue for why our children need to have equal access to high quality services. We need to look at how we provide services. So in here, we've got an example in New South Wales. We have the Malabar Community Midwives Link service. That's a service where we have Aboriginal trained midwives who go out to the community and run community midwifery and hold on to those mums all the way through to the birth. And anecdotally, they've noticed a much greater reduction in smoking amongst those mothers compared to the state average. That then links into, just down in the bottom corner here, into an Aboriginal parent program we've got in Sydney called Nangala Nanga Mai. That started as a way of responding to our depressed and isolated mothers. We run that right next door to our clinic, which is out in La Perouse. It's a great opportunity for us to demystify ourselves for the Aboriginal community, for our service to get known and trusted in the Aboriginal community, but also for parents and their kids to come in and out of both our service and to this group, which also has a preschool component attached to it. The other thing is make friends with the NGOs around you. They're keen to play. So one project I've done in East Lake Shopping Centre is work with a fantastic group called South East Community Centre who provide free multicultural playgroups to culturally and linguistically diverse background families and new migrants. And we've looked at actually taking developmental surveillance and paediatric clinics out to their playgroups rather than, again, expecting people to come to our hospital. And finally, I think you need to think about your global perspective. We are a wealthy country in Australia and we are surrounded by low resource countries in the Pacific. For me, I deal with that by going to Fiji every 6 months and working with the fabulous teams over there. And it's possibly been one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. So you need to think about your global responsibility as well. You can also, we all have to do QI for the college, so you can also, as part of your QI projects, bring in a roadmap to reduce disparities, bring in diagnosing inequalities, measuring them and looking at how you can adapt your practice to change those. And this is a great example from the Robert Johnson. So what does this mean for Sam though? So, well, the first thing is we've got Sam some accessible antenatal care for his mum. So that was helpful because he was no longer low birth weight, she gave up smoking and he was born at the right time. Then we supported mum's mental health. We gave her some education around how she can make Sam's environment enriching. We made her feel better about herself and we got her to a GP and we got her to a good, easy to access general paediatric clinic when Sam started wheezing. So Sam, always been a happy chappy, is an even happier chappy. We got Sam to a supported play group, which not only supported mum and helped her learn to play with Sam, but also helped in terms of referral to preschool. And I will say this, we need to prescribe preschool. Even though it's education, it is an effective intervention that we need to do. So Sam was ready for school and he had a great time making friends in the process. And because Sam was ready for school, he loves school and does well. And because he has a general ped and a good GP, his asthma is well controlled. So he no longer wheezes, he loves his footy and he doesn't miss school. And so instead of having this half-life, Sam has a resilience and support to take on whatever life throws at him. And if that is to be a rock star, so be it. So I would argue that we could all be rock stars in this situation because you're going to feel a whole lot better. There's no more despair. This is hope. This is our opportunity to be poverty warriors and to fight